Hi, it's Wick and Helen with Camino Provisions. Today we're talking about the Meseta.
We're going to give you some practical tips from observations that we had while we were walking the Meseta, and so stay tuned for those.
So one of our preconceptions before we actually started walking the Meseta was that it was flat, all flat. And we were excited about that because we thought, oh, well, this will make it somewhat easier. And what we found out is that there's really a whole lot of up and down on the Meseta. And a lot of that makes it pretty and interesting, and so it's not a bad thing. But if you're thinking it's flat, it's not. And the other thing, we had run into people in Burgos that to catch up on their schedule, they were going to ride bikes between Burgos and León. Well, they were probably surprised because the people we were talking to were from the U.S. In coastal South Carolina, which is very flat.
So for flatlanders like us, native Floridians, or South Carolinians, it's a rude awakening if you think that the Meseta is going to be all flat.
Right.
A lot of it is, but in the beginning it's really not. A real bright spot on several days during our Meseta walk was that we got to walk with our Camino friends that we made. And we didn't plan this, but as it happens often when you're walking the Camino, you end up seeing some familiar faces because you're walking a similar pace to other people. And a lot of times those people become your Camino family, and you form amazingly deep friendships with them. And some of that's because you're spending 4 to 6 hours a day with nothing else to do but walk and talk with people. So we were really blessed to run into our Camino family a few days on the Meseta walk, because it got very weary a lot of those days, a lot of the sameness of terrain, and very difficult distances for us anyway, longer distances than we typically like to walk.
Yeah, we were trying to, due to our age and physical abilities, limit our walks generally to about 10 miles. And on the Meseta, that can be difficult just because there are not a whole lot of places to stop. And so we found a lot of days we had to walk further, and it was hard for us. Mm-hmm. For people that are walking 20K or more, which there were plenty that were, you would be okay with that. But when you're only walking 10 miles or 16K, you start to find that it's harder to find places to stay.
And not only is it harder to find places to stay because of the smaller villages, but because of the longer distances between villages, you do have to plan ahead for carrying your own snacks and your water.
Yeah.
And that actually is something that we did not realize we were going to miss the cafes in the villages like we did. There were just fewer of them, and very few places where you could find some shade and sit down on a bench or someplace to take a break and have your own snack. So just plan ahead, knowing that the Meseta is going to be a very different experience from what you have had before you got to Burgos, and just plan for that.
One of the things, though, that we do want to emphasize that just like all parts of the Camino, there were lots of beauty spots. It's a different kind of beauty, say, than walking over the Pyrenees or some of the other well-known places. But there were still beautiful places and always pilgrim hospitality if you were looking for it and listening and for your host. So we were very, again, every time we were starting to feel a little tired or worn down, somebody would provide that hospitality, or we would find a place to take a break. And so again, we were provided, the Lord provided what we needed when we needed it.
We've touched on this a little bit, but I just want to mention it again, and that is a lot of the Meseta is walking along highway. And what I mean by that is actual cars going by. I'm not saying that there's a lot of traffic, but it is still walking alongside highway. And there's not particularly danger that you'll get hit by a car because the Camino is beside, it's not on the highway. But between the highway walking and all the open farmland that there is on the Meseta, answering the call of nature can be more challenging to find privacy to do that. So when you do find a place to have some privacy, trees or bushes or whatever, take advantage of that, because there can be some very long stretches without anything like that. So with all of those things being said, we hope you'll enjoy watching the video that we've put together that shows some of the beauty that we saw as we walked this special stretch called the Meseta that roughly runs between Burgos and León. And I'll put in the description box below the towns that you walk through when you're doing the Meseta. But you'll see just how different the terrain is from what we encountered in La Rioja and over the Pyrenees and everything. It's just a very different look, but it still has its beauty and it still has its challenges. So we hope you'll enjoy this. And as always, we just ask, please, to subscribe to the channel, and if you ring the little bell icon, then that means that you will be notified when a new episode posts. And until we post the next one, we'll say
Buen Camino.
Leaving Burgos.
Yep.
Way there in the distance, in the center there, you can see a group of pilgrims, kind of a line of pilgrims walking. That's where we're headed. And this is where we are. We're leaving Castro Jerez and headed up over this hill
Looks like a mountain.
onto the Meseta some more, and it is a glorious day.
For the Lord is a great God, and the great King above all gods.
Nice to see this green field among all the brown ones. Looking it up, it said it's alfalfa. Beautiful golden field. Meseta. Beautiful garden here. Lots of yummy fruit and veg. Coming into Población de Campos. Right here it's really flat, and we're taking an alternate route, which is in the country. Yeah, here's the river, what they call a river. Yeah, small river, and it is chilly. It's still chilly here on the Meseta. Headwind, side wind, No break from the wind. So that's the weather we've got to look forward to. We're hoping we can get to where we're going, which is about 6 kilometers, about 3 miles, before we really get rained on. Long line of pilgrims ahead of us in this rain with their ponchos flapping. And we see some bright spots of sun over to the right, but more rain over that way. Nothing for it but to keep walking.